Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the Inequality Room podcast for episode number 113, in which I want to ask all of you, how did we get here? How did we get to a place where every other recommended video that I see coming down the line on YouTube is about how a civil war is coming our way? Americans versus Americans. Blue versus red. If you would have told me last March that the next major war that we may be engaging in would be one against each other on our own soil, I don't know that I would have believed that that could ultimately be possible. But I got to be honest, guys, what I'm seeing out here in Los Angeles makes me believe that it's very possible. It's very possible. I don't know that if it's possible on a nationwide, every city going up in smoke type of way, but man, things are getting out of hand. For example, out here, the Lakers just won the NBA championship, and the Dodgers just won the World Series. And after both of those events, a positive thing, a great thing for a city, right? After both of those events, a celebration, spilled out into the street of downtown Los Angeles and here in Santa Monica. And both of those celebrations were quickly replaced with riots and looting and even more businesses burning, being destroyed, more people being assaulted. Just horrible to watch. In fact, this is what happened last night.
Yeah, Pat, this has been going on for over an hour now. This has been the craziest by far, and we've seen a lot tonight. This is Olympic and Atlantic, where we've had, according to sheriff's deputies, as many as 1,000 people. Now, as crazy as this is, we have so much else to show you.
Let's go! Coming through! Stop the car! Stop the car! Stop the car! I'm the press! Remember the press! Get up! Remember the press! Get up!
Well, now to a massive cleanup underway right now in downtown after looters ransacked several businesses after the Dodgers win last night. Kick Line's Candace Crone has more on one local group's effort to stop it from ever happening again.
So once again, the question is, how did we get here? How did we get to a place where being a Republican or a Democrat, made you, mortal enemies? Growing up in Texas and then Iowa, Republicans, Democrats, they definitely went back and forth. But I don't ever remember a time where it was even a possibility that those differences would bring you to blows or potentially harming or hurting somebody. But, now in the age of Antifa and Proud Boys and, these extremists on both sides, it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around this. And when November 3rd comes, the thing is, it doesn't matter who wins in regard to the social chaos that is going to ensue. And I got to be honest, guys, I'm getting out of here. For November 3rd, Laura and I have a nice little place we're going to go to, and we're going to get away for a couple days, because I will not be the person that sat back and said, I knew it was coming and I didn't do something about it. That was a big thing. I remember studying both the Jeffrey Dahmer case and the head detective on the Jeffrey Dahmer case, once they realized that one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims actually escaped. Jeffrey Dahmer was gay, and he used to go to gay bars and bring home, dates in which he would get them naked, and he would do all kinds of crazy stuff to them, ultimately drilling a hole in their head and trying to pour acid in it to make him a sex zombie. And this one gentleman escaped, and the police brought him back to Jeffrey. And because they just assumed that he was high and, freaking out because the guy was running down the street naked. He escaped naked. And anyways, they brought him back, and Jeffrey was like, oh, yeah, he's tripping on acid. But I'll watch over him. I'll make sure he's okay. And they turned him over to Dahmer, who then, did what Dahmer did, And in the aftermath, the detective said the reason that happened was a failure of imagination. We could have never thought that to be possible. We would have never thought that scenario up. When 9/11 happened, the former head of the FBI said that 9/11 happened due to a failure of imagination. Yes, there were signs and plans of we'll fly planes into buildings, but as far as how it all happened and how it all went down, the different steps, they said whoever did this, it was due to a failure of imagination. And I bring that up because when I look at Los Angeles, there are so many reasons to believe that a legitimate war scale civil war could break out here. I don't want to be the guy that lives a block away from the Santa Monica Pier, one of the biggest symbols of Hollywood, and this kind of, as they call it, the snowflake culture and the West Coast liberal mecca. There's a lot of reasons why things would, start a block from me. And that's what happened, when the George Floyd riots broke out, that were, that spilled into my yard, man. I mean, there was rubber bullets and tear gas canisters, and it started a block away from me. And I know why. It's the symbolism, it's a total symbolism of the Santa Monica Pier and kind of the whole Hollywood vibe. So when the extreme, the far right red, went nose to nose with the far left blue, and what we had was a really scary, week where real violence was going down. People were getting killed. 200 some businesses destroyed, looted, burned. And that was something that people were rioting over, but George Floyd wasn't from here. That's not to take away from the importance of the case, but what I'm saying is I'm certain that the riots and the looting and all that stuff and the emotion was even more powerful in George Floyd's community. This was not his backyard, but still that level of intensity occurred here. I don't want to be the guy that said I knew that something really bad could happen, and I stayed here. And then I find myself, having to hurt someone. In the worst case scenario, kill someone to make sure that, my family is okay and protected. Because, like anybody, if it comes to that, I would do what I had to do to be safe and to keep my family safe. So it makes more sense that for those few days we just, step out and find a nice, cool place to hunker down for a few days, take a couple days off of work, just get away and be safe. And so that's what we're going to do. um, because I've seen it here. And I have some statistics for you guys that I actually looked up, and what I found blew my mind. Because, as I've said, I've watched Los Angeles grow from a place that people used to, save money year round just to come out here and vacation for 2 or 3 days. I've watched it go from a place like that, a little, one of the best little slices of Southern California beach that you could ever imagine, into a place that just isn't really safe anymore. And you can say, well, Chad, are you being over dramatic here? I mean, is Santa Monica is not safe? Well, I have some statistics here that are going to blow your mind. Since 2015, okay, violent crime in Santa Monica has increased by 90%. Okay, that's just violent crime. Since 2015, actually between 2015 and 2018, we're actually waiting for the statistics for 2019 and 20 to come out. But just between 2015 and 2018, violent crime has increased 90%. What I'm about to tell you is going to get even crazier, and I couldn't believe this until I kept looking further into the data, and it kept confirming it. Santa Monica today is the 8th most dangerous city in all of California to live in, per capita. Santa Monica, the 8th most dangerous city. We're almost neck and neck with Oakland. Santa Monica has more crime per capita than Compton, than Watts. Santa Monica is getting just really bad. Really bad. That blew my mind. But when I dug even further, I was even more blown away by the fact that what does that number mean? The 8th most dangerous city in California to live in. Well, it means that 1 in every 114 people, or 1 resident, 1 in every 114 residents, risk the chance of being killed, raped, or beaten. 1 in every 114. Furthermore, 1 in every 18 citizens in Santa Monica risk the chance of having their property damaged or stolen. Think about that. Think about those numbers. This is Santa Monica, California. At one point, and Santa Monica, it's adjacent to Venice Beach. I mean, at one point, more people visited Venice Beach than Disneyland. That's how popular tourism was here in Santa Monica. Again, Santa Monica, Venice, Twin Cities side by side. It's hard to tell where one starts and where one stops. Most people view it as Rose Avenue. Rose is where the boardwalk essentially starts. Below me, there is a parking lot that connects to Rose. So I could be on the Venice boardwalk in a 2-minute walk. I mean, out the front door and it's right there. I could be on the pier even faster. That's a block away. This used to be, like I said, a total tourist, destination. And, it's turned into a really dangerous place. A couple nights ago, Laura and I woke up with, machine gun fire, we heard. Right outside the window, just brow, brow, in the middle of the night. We had a bunch of cars come down and shut down the intersection, where they've been doing this all over the city. where they will have a bunch of cars, like 20, 30 cars, and they'll pull up into an intersection and they'll just basically circle the cars, like circling the wagons. And the cars will start, like, cutting cookies and smoking everything up and just, doing whatever they want. And the cops aren't doing anything. Another night, we woke up and I thought, holy shit, our place is on fire. I'm like, Laura, what does that smell? And it turns out that it's the homeless encampments that are down below in the parking lot at the beach that have now spilled all throughout Venice, all throughout Santa Monica. The boardwalk is, unrecognizable because it's filled with just homeless encampments. Somebody started lighting them all on fire. So there was tons of tents that were lit on fire with people in the tents, okay? They didn't do it. Somebody did it to them. So imagine that. Imagine you're already homeless. You're already fighting, being poor, dealing with poor hygiene in the time of, a pandemic. You're trying to figure out how you, survive and stay safe. And somebody, when you're asleep, walks by and lights your tent on fire. And I want to be clear about this. As much as it angers me that my community is, just overran by homeless, my heart breaks for all of them. The only reason that, it bothers me that the community is overran by homeless, it's because the city's doing nothing. There should be services. There should be services for these people. And jail is not the answer, and shipping them off to another city is not the answer. The vast majority of homeless are dealing with drug addiction. The vast majority. And just like in normal society, the vast majority of homeless are good and decent people. You have a small handful of those who, are not decent, who mean you harm, who are, angry, jealous, and, they feel entitled. And I just had a situation, and it just blew my mind that this even happens, like where I live. Like, again, 2 blocks from me, just up on Pico, I stop to get gas, and I go inside, pay for the gas, and on my way in, there was a guy that was like, yo, man, you got some change? The truth is, I didn't. I just never carry cash on me. And I said, no, I'm sorry, man, I don't have any cash. And he goes, well, shit, man, I take credit, man. And I thought he was, like, joking. I still think he was joking, but I looked at him and I go, nah, man. And I kind of giggled when I said it. I was just kind of like, nah, man, nah. So when I came back out, he's like, you too good to use your credit card on me? And I looked at him and I was like, sorry, man, I just, So I turn around and I'm walking back and I'm not really paying attention to him, I guess. I'm just thinking he's going to be, fine. And so I go around, I open my car door, and when I turn around to get into the car, he is right behind me. I mean, like 6 inches behind me, like just right up on me. And I look back, I'm like, yo, dude, whoa. I'm like, back the fuck up, dude. I'm like, you were way too close, man. What are you doing? And he's going, you give me a cigarette, man? You give me a cigarette? And I'm like, no. I'm like, dude, for real, back up. Because at this point, I can't even shut the car door. I can't even shut the car door. And I'm thinking in my head, listen, he's going to have to move or I'm going to have to fight this dude. And I don't want to fight this, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's the last thing I want, So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I finally just said, dude, listen, if you don't move, I'm going to move you. And he takes one step back enough for me to basically, get in the car and shut the door. And he just starts screaming, assault me. He says he's going to assault me. He says he's going to assault me. And all this shit, which I didn't say that I was going to assault him. I said, back up or I'm going to have to move you. So right as I shut the door, he spits on my window and he starts screaming, you got everything, I got shit. You got everything, I got shit. And I'm, pissed off, geeked out at the same time, but also empathetic too. I mean, like, I couldn't imagine what that would feel like every day to have to, ask somebody. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I would find a way to make money somehow. And, but I don't know his situation. I don't know. Maybe he can't work. Maybe the drug addiction has him, so tied up that, he goes through withdrawals when he can't get his stuff and he can't work. Or, I don't know. I don't know his situation. But I can't imagine being driven to that level where you have to, beg off people to survive. And there should be help there, man. For those who want help, there should be help. And my guess is, if suddenly tomorrow there were programs that can get people into treatment, and then from there get them into a sober living, and then from there, get them a job, even if it's partially subsidized by the state or the federal government, I think we'd probably wind up saving money, because my guess is the vast majority of those people would love to go to rehab, would love to have a life of meaning, would love to have a job. And, I think that the majority of them probably, even if half of them, even if it was 40%, the current, rate of beating addiction, especially opiate addiction, is only like 7%. And that's just with, taking the steps, the 12-step program. That's 7%. Another way of saying that is it's fucking a failure. That's a terrible program to get people clean. But there are other, programs that work much better. In Portugal, they're leading the way on this. They, changed all their laws where they don't incarcerate anybody with a drug problem anymore. They get them treatment. They once they're done with treatment, they get them into a clean, nice, safe, sober living. And from there, they get a job that's subsidized by the government for 6 months, and then they're finally released on their own. And they've saw that they've had a 50% success rate. So just crushed our 7% odds. With California having the largest or the fifth largest economy in the world, they say, I don't need, an extra lane on the 405 that I don't use anyways. The city, this is how poorly managed the city is. In 2012, I think it was, they agreed and voted on and approved a new, a bill that would put an extra lane on the 405. And this would cost $7 billion, and it would be completed in 2050. 2050. Listen, by that time, with the rate that, the population's growing, by the time 2050 arrives, they're going to need 3 more lanes to handle the traffic. So my question is, do we need an extra lane? Or could we have used $7 billion to help people who desperately need help? Who desperately need help because our government, shook the hand of Big Pharma and got in bed with, the largest opiate producer on planet Earth, and allowed them to, get a nation hooked and make trillions of dollars. Why can't we, whenever we do these big drug busts that our government loves to go on the news and tell us about, and like, yes, we, got 3 truckloads, filled of Mexican cartel-made syrup. And there was just a news story about this like last year sometime. There was like 3 different trucks that had the cough syrup, promethazine, with codeine. And there was like, this is the largest bust that we've had. 3 trucks full. Like the street value of this alone was something like $30 million or something like that. And part of this bust is they found like $5 million in cash, like U.S. cash. They found $5 million. Well, they confiscate money all the time with these drug busts. Why can't we just take that money and use that for rehab for the homeless and intervention? I mean, listen, maybe that's the wrong idea. My point is, there's ideas, man. We need idea men. We need idea men, or women. We need idea men or women, people that can sit at the table and say, all the shit we've done is not working, and we need to have some ideas here. So let's come up with solutions, because what we're doing isn't working. You know? So I'm sitting out here and I'm watching the city rot and anger just build. And a big reason the anger is building too, I'm telling you, at the root of all of these riots, at the root of all of these, you know, fights and all the looting and all this stuff, I'm telling you, it is income inequality. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but it was on the news. I looked this up as well too. Since last March, the top 1% has gained, profited $700 billion. During the pandemic, the top 1% has profited $700 billion. This is the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the United States, from the working class to the top 1%. What that means is the poor got dramatically poorer, and the rich got dramatically wealthier since the pandemic hit, because all those stimulus packages, they're not going where they're supposed to go. The money's not making it. Like a small percentage of that money is actually winding up in the hands and pockets of small businesses and you know, the working class. Look at the screen right now. This right here occurred in the last couple of weeks. Look at all these businesses shutting their doors. I mean, look at this. October 19th, October 20th. This is right now. So you have, you know, this incredible widening gap where the rich are getting richer and richer and richer, and the poor are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And now we have this pandemic where small businesses are getting crushed, and they're done. They're getting wiped out. There is a looming eviction crisis on its way. People are pissed because at the same time, because the top 1% are, you know, gaining an incredible amount of wealth, and they're also playing in the stock market. The stock market, you know, has some of the highest numbers it's ever produced. So when people turn on the TV and they hear about this amazing V-shaped recovery, you know, as millions and millions and millions of people, you know, are trying to figure out how they get food. You know, I mean, listen, you're going to have rage in people's souls, man. And this blue and red thing. What's so weird about that, guys, is blue and red. I sat there and said, which am I? Am I blue or am I red? Because I think socially, I probably lean towards being a Democrat, or I mean, I know I do, in the sense that, listen, you know, when it comes to, you know, look, I think we should legalize all drugs, period, bottom line, all of them. I think all of them should be legalized, take the danger out of it, tax it, put the money in towards programs, you know, educational programs, medical programs, help the homeless. I mean, the bottom line is if people are going to do drugs, they're going to do drugs. They're doing them right now. You know, drugs are illegal right now, and everybody and their brother, you know, can get their hands on drugs if they want to. So it's happening. They're doing it. So why not make it safe? You know, people are exercising their free will. They choose to do drugs, then they choose to. And, you know, if they need help later and they can't handle it, there should be institutions for that. But, you know, don't make it dangerous, and don't have the government, you know, behind a veil of secrecy, and be one of the largest, you know, drug dealers in the world. And that is a fact. You know, the government, the CIA are historically and currently, you know, the largest drug dealers on planet Earth. And, you know, please don't try to tell me anything different. I've done so much research on this. Please read into it. You know, this has been this way since the dawn of time. And when it comes to religious beliefs, I'm to each their own. I'm wide open when it comes to sexuality. I've said this before. People have been inventing ways to get off since the dawn of time. If if what makes you happy is a standard American dream sex life where it's just you and your wife or husband forever, and you just love missionary and you just want to be with one person forever, that's great, man. If you're happy, that's awesome, because that's it. There's no blueprint for happiness. If you're happy, you're happy. If you're if you have a wife that's into women, great. If a wife is okay with her husband doing whatever, great. If you're swingers, great. As long as no one's getting hurt, everyone's an adult, I'm fine with all of it. So I guess in that degree, I'm very liberal. So when it comes to like I said, religion, sexuality, drugs, social event, like I'm just I would say extremely liberal. But there are things that I'm very conservative about too. I'd like to think that I'm conservative about spending. I mean, in general, I'm just not a person that runs out and buys a lot of things that I don't need. I mean, I'm just a firm believer of getting the most you possibly can for your dollar. I'm a firm believer. I don't want government involved at all. I absolutely hate red tape. I'm spiritual. Not religious, but spiritual. So there's definitely things. Like I said, I hate regulation. I don't. When it comes to the Second Amendment, I see a reason for it. I think that there should be some reform for sure, because I think there's some serious issues with the Second Amendment as it was written, because it was meant for militias to stop a government and overthrow a government that the playing field was equal and everybody had muskets. You know what I mean? Now it's obviously very different. So I'm okay with people wanting a gun if you have a child, or if you have a need to protect your home. Like, I understand that. I think there should be some training. I think we should limit the amount of, or the types of weapons that people can get. I think there can be some legislation on bullets that would help a lot of that. But I have some conservative thoughts about that. So when I stop, what am I? I'm not blue or red. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. And when I look at the parties, it's kind of weird, because I often have a tendency, it seems as though I have a tendency to like and support more Democratic politicians. But I think it's because the social side of it matters so much to me. But at the end of the day, I can't stand any politician, man. I've just seen them. They all lie. They're all full of shit, and they always have been. And I've seen that across the board. Here's a bipartisan truth: all politicians are bipartisan liars. Period. So I'm not really into either. So what am I? Look, I'm a person with thoughts and ideas that just wants the best person in office that has the best ideas. And I think most people are like that, which is why this whole situation is blowing my mind. And I think I know why this is all happening. I think I know why, the blue versus red thing is so predominant, when most people, I think most people would say that I'm part red and part blue, that I have, there's different ideas on either side that I agree with. I think most people are like that. But yet there's this dividing line. And it's a line that is really dangerous right now, because we are on the verge potentially of a civil war. That's a fact. We are. So I go back to my first question that I asked. Why? Why? I think the income inequality is one big part of it, but maybe not in the way that you think. Since the dawn of time, there have been groups, because mankind as a whole, we have this desire and this need. And this has been well documented through psychological studies. People want to be a part of something. You want to be a part of a tribe or a group. We've seen this in universities, whether it's secret societies, Greek societies, or even just bowling teams, man. Like or different chess teams, or even after you graduate high school and college, there's amateur sporting teams, and yes, there are religious teams and political teams. So it feels good to get together with people who, share thoughts and ideas. So when it comes to, being an adult, politics now affect your life, especially if you're out there in the world trying to run a business and trying to succeed and build your dreams. And, it feels good to be with the side. And when, if you have a lot of beliefs that, swing to the left, and, you find out about this Democratic group and you meet people and they invite you to be a part of their circle, it's a natural thing, to want to be a part of a tribe. And, you see that in sporting events, right? Big time. And that's going on right now in politics. Where Democrats, feel like there's such a dividing line between Republicans, and Republicans feel the same way about Democrats, that rather than come to the middle and say, let's make one big tribe, there's a rallying point that both sides are basically, saluting right now, and they're not getting together. There's a like I said, there's a dividing line. And in addition to that, I think what's most dangerous about that is the natural ability to want to point at something and say, that's the monster, that's the thing that is causing things to go wrong. Like when you have goals in your life and you're doing everything you can to accomplish those goals. When things are not turning out the way that you want them to, then you have a natural desire and a need to want to say, this is why. This is why. This thing or this person, that's why this isn't happening. And I think that the income inequality, when what's more serious than in our lives, what is more serious than, I don't know how I'm going to keep my roof over my head, or how I'm going to eat, or how I'm going to keep my child safe and fed and protected. These are really serious things. So these tribes become very emboldened. And people right now, they want to believe that things are going to get better if they get the right guy. And Trump is a very divisive dude. I mean, he is out there saying things like, I alone can solve all your problems. This guy over here will absolutely destroy your life. So you're with us or you're fucking against us. And that's, that's a dangerous line to walk, because it doesn't take that long for people that would never engage in like a riot to suddenly get a taste of that blood, man, and want more. And once it starts flowing in the streets, man, it's amazing. It's amazing to see the transformation of an entire group of people. I'll tell you what, when I was in college in 1997 in Ames, Iowa, they had this celebration. It was a weekend celebration called Visha. And it's where all the colleges in Iowa, the student bodies, would come to Ames to have this massive party on one weekend. So like the Iowa Hawkeyes, the UNI Panthers, Simpson College, Iowa Western, all the colleges throughout the state, the student bodies would come to Ames, Iowa, and it was just the biggest weekend-long bash you could ever imagine. This was the second time that I had experienced it. The first one, I'm not sure why I missed it. I think I was back home for some kind of funeral or something of one of my friends. And the second one, I was only there for one day. I was traveling again for some reason. But in 1997, I had the chance to experience the entire event. And I can tell you how this all started. At that time, there was a girl that I had kind of dated here and there when I was in high school, but I was very interested in her, and I invited her to come up and hang out with us during this Visha event, in which she had multiple friends that were in Ames, and I was late for my invitation. So she said, I'm already going to be there, but I'll be, at Jackie's house. I'll come over and I'll see you there and we'll hang out. So, well, this house that she was at was on the far end of Ames, Iowa, the north side. That doesn't mean anything to you, but basically from where I was at, it was the other side of the city. So it was a ways out there. So I get out there, and what had happened is all of the parties that were kind of downtown, the police were trying to break them up as quickly as they could. So they all started going to this north end where I was headed towards. And when I got there, I mean, there was so many people, thousands of people. There were basically like 5 different house parties turned into one. All these houses were right by each other, and they were all hosting parties, and just everybody kept coming and coming and coming. And, word of mouth spread quickly. This is before the days of social media, So I get out there, and it's crazy. Like, there are, like I said, thousands of people out in the street, all college students. And everyone's, having fun. It's like, it's a good time, but everybody's obviously wasted. There's tons of underage drinking going on. So I finally run into this girl that I was looking towards seeing. And I'm hanging out with her, and, we're having a blast, and the night is going awesome. I'm having the freaking time of my life, and I finally talked this girl into stepping into this smoking lounge area that this guy had set up, and then it had, I don't know why, but it had this separate room where you could like just hang out. It was dark. I think it was like a makeout room or something. I don't know. So I basically told her to come back in there with me, and she does. And I'm literally just getting ready to kiss this girl, and right past my ear, I just hear thump. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, what? And I'm like, wait here for a second. And I go and I look outside this wooden, like, a thing that we're in. I look past it down. I just turned the corner like I'm looking outside of a door. And I see nothing but just rows of police wearing the riot gear. And the thong that I heard, that was tear gas that buzzed right by where we were at. I look back over my shoulder. There's tear gas filling up this entire area with like hundreds of people. I grab this girl. I'm like, we got to go now. And she's like, what? I'm like, now. So we take off and we're running, and they're just letting off tear gas like crazy. At this point, they're moving in too, because there's 2 different other groups outside on the other side up the street, and they're just whacking kids with clubs. I mean, left and right, man, just whacking kids with clubs. And this girl's terrified now, and I got the chance to be a hero now, right? So I'm just like, I'm just like, just grab the back of my shirt, and I'm like, don't let go. Just hang on. I will get us out of here. So somehow, I look, everybody I came with, I completely lost. Somehow we got through the maze of everybody. They've got all kinds of vans that they're arresting people and they're throwing people in. But about halfway through, the crowd decided to turn on them. In total, there was probably 60 to 80 armed police and 3 different groups of like 20, and they were greatly outmanned. And I think the crowd kind of started realizing that after they got over the fear of tear gas and everything else. So the next thing I see, I get a ways away. I'm probably about a quarter of a block away from the whole party. And the next thing I see is just bottles of whiskey. I mean, like, you name anything that could be thrown at these police is being thrown. And they're just winging it left and right. People, one of the baseball pitchers, I know his name today, I probably shouldn't even say it, but he went up on the roof and he was rifling 90-mile-an-hour fastballs at these dudes. I mean, it was crazy, and the whole place busted out, and they started beating the shit out of cops. And I was like, whoa. I mean, and I'm telling you, there was hundreds of people that were engaged in this. And, from where I was standing, you could see it happening. You could see that anger that people had, that frustration in their life, it was like somebody pushed a button and said it's okay to let it out. And they just start getting more and more and more angry. And everybody's, rooting them on because they're like fighting the police. And then it takes a really dark, dark turn as this car of this guy and his wife, and there was 2 small kids in the back, they turned the corner to go down the street, and I'm assuming they live there. Well, right when they turned the corner, they got close to the crowd, and they put it in park because the guy's trying to figure out what is going on. Well, the crowd viewed it as he's putting it in park because he's telling us he's going to ram us. So, the entire crowd runs over. They start shaking the car left and right. They're jumping up on the car. And people are screaming, there's kids in the back, and they're not stopping. They're not doing anything. I'm yelling it. I'm yelling, there's kids in the back, They're not stopping. And they finally flip the car up on its side. And people just start freaking out because there's kids bouncing around and back. So thankfully, they were able to push the car back down. And I say thankfully, not like that's a great result, but it was, they did not flip it on its head and no one inside got hurt. But you can see this madness kind of taking over and everybody cheering and, until they saw the kids obviously in the back. But the point being is it got there really fast. So at that point, I looked at this girl and I was like, yo, you want to get out of here? You got to go talk to your friends or can we just go? And it was kind of a good situation for me because I'm like, not only was I the hero that just got the girl out, now I have an excuse to say, just come with me. But the night's not over. Some really weird stuff was about to happen. So she says, yeah, listen, I want to be with you. Let's just get out of here. I'm like, yo, I'm with you. Let's get out of there. So we turned and we're on foot. So we just decided we're just going to walk back to the other side of town. It's probably about a 3-4 mile walk maybe. But again, back then there is no cell phones. There's no calling cabs. There's nothing, So we figured we would walk, and if we saw somebody by chance, we'd hop in with them, or we just hitch a ride if we saw an easy ride scenario. So we ended up walking the whole way, and we get all the way back, and we notice a small house party is going on. And we're down right on Lincoln Avenue in Ames, and I go up to this small house party, and I just walk up to the door, and a guy opens the door, and he's like, "Yo, it's $5 for a cup." And that's what they would do, is they would charge for cups, right, back in the day. So I said, okay, cool, you want a cup? And the girls would said, yeah, sure. So we pay for our cups, and right when we pay for our cups, we walk up, and they say, oh, the keg's tapped, so it's dry. I'm like, oh, shit, man. I'm like, so what, we just paid for a cup. So I walk back over to the dude that I bought the cups from, and I'm just like, yo, dude, the keg's out. Can I get my money back? And he was like, well, there's another keg coming back. And I'm like, well, when's that going to be? And he was like, well, soon, they just left. And I'm like, oh, well, dude, if it's going to be like an hour or so, we're going to go somewhere else. I don't want to sit around here for an hour. And he's just like, well, dude, just chill. It'll be back. So he doesn't want to give my money back, basically. So I look at him and I go, well, you don't want to give me the cash back. And he was like, well, dude, I'm just saying, you already gave it to me. You bought a cup. We're going to have alcohol. So it is what it is. So right after, I say that to him, I hear a kid that's clearly drunk. And he just goes, why don't you just get the fuck out of here? I look over and I'm like, dude, why so aggro, brother? What I mean? We're having fun here. What's up? And he's just standing there staring at me, weird as hell. And I look at him and I literally say to him, I go, dude, why are you so aggressive? And he's just staring at me. He's not saying a word, weird vibes, just not saying anything. I look back at the guy and the guy's looking at me and I go, is this your boy? And he's like, no, man, I don't know him. And I look back over at the dude and I go, you don't know this guy? And he goes, why are you asking? I'm like, why are you here? He's like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just staring at him and I'm telling you, there was something about him that I just did not read right. You ever done that when you meet somebody and you just know there's something dark about him? Something is not good. So as I'm walking around the room, he's just staring at me, man. Just staring at me like crazy. So I finally walk up to, the girl that I was hanging out with, because she actually was talking to a different girl in the corner, and I go up to her and I'm like, yo, let's just, get out of here and go back to my place. I'm like, we can chill, no more cops, no more riots, no more weirdness, let's just get out of here. She's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, all right, cool, we'll go. And I'm like, score, perfect, this is all going the way I wanted it to go. So as I'm leaving, I walk out and look at the dude and I go, I'm out of here, man, you all good? You're going to be fine now? I'm leaving? And he just stares at me, doesn't say a word, just stares at me. Now, usually when you're being, a smartass to somebody, you get some kind of response. Nothing. Just a stare like he's looking through me. And I remember thinking, don't take your eyes off of him. So as I'm walking past him, I'm just staring at him the whole time. Through the door, I'm still looking at him. I turn around, facing him, and shut the door so I could see him, go down the stairs, and walk out to the sidewalk. When I get to the sidewalk, I hear someone screaming inside the house. Just screaming. Like bloody murder screaming. And I'm like, dude, go, go. I just started go, go, go. Because I'm thinking something else bad happened. I don't want to be anywhere near you. I'm done with this. I'm done with whatever is going on. Like I said, we had just been a riot on the street with tear gas canisters and all this shit. So I get back to our place, and again, this isn't a social media, era, so I don't know what happened. But the following day, I learned that the guy that was staring at me, literally stabbed the dude and killed him. A guy named Yuri Sellers. He stabbed a guy named Yuri Sellers, and it killed him. Well, as it turns out, this kid was from Fort Dodge, Iowa, which is like an hour away. He drove to Ames to party at Visha, and he was at this party trying to get in to drink. He was underage. He was 19 years old. Wasn't even 21 years old. So he drove there, and he was waiting for his friend to meet him there and give him his $5 so he can buy his cup and then, get into the party. So they weren't letting him deeper into the house until he had his money. So when I asked that guy, do you know him? He was being dead serious. He said, no, I don't know him. So I don't know why the guy was staring at me or what he was pissed off about, but right after we left, seconds later, that kid that I was staring at eye to eye, he stabbed the dude inside right where we were standing, a guy named Yuri Sellers, and the dude died. Okay? So when I tell you I've seen mob mentality take over and people do crazy shit for no reason, like I've just seen how quickly that happens. And that was over beer. All right? So my point is, in all of this, if the Lakers winning the championship and the Dodgers, winning the World Series, these are good things. Okay? If there was enough anger in the air during good things, all right, to destroy buildings and assault people and burn things down and loot things, I mean, what's going to happen when either Trump or Biden wins the presidency, especially if it's contested? It's going to explode, man. And I'm not going to be around to watch it happen, I'm going to be somewhere safe enjoying my beautiful wife and my puppy and my family. I can't, it's going to get real scary. So take it real, guys. Don't get caught out there with the lack of imagination. And when it comes to this blue and red thing, guys, we're not blue or red. There's no such thing. It's so childish, man. We're all just people that are trying to find happiness. That's it. Life is very simple in its pursuits. We all want love. We all want happiness. We want a roof over our head. We want to know we have medicine. We want to know we have food. Like it's pretty basic to stay, to be happy, right? Authentic relationships, great friends, loved ones, a roof over your head, medicine and food. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Because when people don't have those things, it's like I said before, it's a saying that I say all the time. It's all Rage Against the Machine line. Hungry people don't stay hungry for long. And to prove this, look at this footage right here.
Where hundreds of people stormed a truck. It was a food delivery truck, a large semi-tractor trailer loaded with food, and the group began looting the truck. There were reports they were jumping on top. As we pulled up, they actually were walking on top of the truck. At one point, we saw folks trying to climb inside the cab of the truck. The truck is now driving away, but it's basically been emptied out by looters who basically brought out box after box of food, cereal, all kinds of goods out into the street there, and you can see some of the mess that's been left behind.
This happened after the World Series, when they were out looting and celebrating and lighting up the streets with cars, spinning out and doing wheelies. there happened to be a large semi-truck that came through an intersection where the crowd stopped it. A guy jumped up and he asked the driver, "What is it that you're hauling?" And the driver said, "Food." He was interviewed later and he said, "Listen, when it came right down to it, there's nothing inside that truck worth dying over." He said, "If that community wanted food, I was more than happy to give it to them." He said, "If all those guys wanted food, I was more than happy to let them have it." In which this truck was graffitied, completely ripped open, and every ounce of food in the truck was dispersed and passed out to the community. So think about that, man. During the 1992 riots, for Rodney King, all you saw was footage of things burning and being destroyed, or like big objects being stolen. TVs, cars, things like that. You didn't see a whole lot of footage of people getting groceries. But yet, when this crowd out here in LA saw, "Oh my God, this semi has food," they reacted like there were Rolexes inside that thing. That'll tell you a big difference of right now, too. People are really hurting right now, man. They're really hurting. And Congress has no problem doing everything it takes to, get a justice confirmed in record time. But yet people are fucking starving right now, man. And no one's doing anything to help them. So I will discuss in a future podcast who it is that I'm actually voting for and why. And believe me, don't just assume that I'm riding with Biden. I have all kinds of issues with both sides. But I guess more than anything, I just wanted to let you guys know my prayers are with all you guys. Don't underestimate what can happen. Don't, because now is a very, very serious time that's very real, and there are people that are hurting, and when that happens, it's real easy for a riot mentality to take over, and for people to need a monster to point at, because you have a lot of people on the left that are pointing at Trump going, "That's the monster," and anybody who supports him is my enemy. And then you have people on Trump's side that are pointing at, the blue states and Biden supporters and going, those people are criminals. And, each side has their own arguments, man. And it's about life. So it's going to get real. It's going to get real. And when it does, I hope you all are safe. So I would love to know how you guys feel about all of this. So please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, one of the best ways that you can support us is to click the like button and leave a comment, like I said earlier, and let me know what you thought. But also, click the notifications button, the bell right there, and click all so you get a message every time I post a new In a Crowded Room podcast. With that being said, thank you guys for listening. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.